All right. Hi, I'm Mike Palacios. I'm the managing director of Havoc Digital, and I'd like to tell you a little bit. I'll start with a little bit of a story about, I guess, how I got into this industry. If you told me, I guess, 10 years ago that I would be kind of like in the advertising or marketing space, I would have called you crazy. When I graduated from college in 1998, the thing that I was most interested in was publishing. I wanted to get into a newspaper. I wanted to publish a newspaper or write for a magazine or something like that. But I think the thing that most excited me at the time was that the internet was still in a very early stage, and you saw a lot of these publications and magazines going online, and I knew that there was kind of like a shift taking place. So about a year later, something else hit me, was that the internet space wasn't just like this place where people could post, could put their could relocate their magazines. It wasn't just a publishing platform, but it was a feedback platform. So suddenly, the people who read newspapers could talk back to them, and not just by sending a letter to the editor, but literally comment on a particular article or a particular space. And I guess one of the things that some friends of mine were looking at was, we were looking at like how people interacted online, especially in the Philippines. And yung medyo uso at the time was something called IRC. And IRC was a kind of like a chat platform that basically I could talk to another person, and basically what was the number one thing that people talked about in IRC was the moniker ASL. What was your age, gender, and location. And that was pretty much it. That's pretty much all that IRC kind of did, was just a lot of these like one-on-one discussions. What was not available at the time was kind of like a place where people could talk about issues, topics, their favorite UAAP team, their favorite food, the place that they would gimmick at every Saturday night. So these were things that really weren't discussed, because in IRC it was all about who you were talking to, not what you were talking about. And so we created this venue where we allowed people to, instead of just chatting, why don't you start posting? And we started we created a place called PinoyExchange.com, which was a very simple online forum, and continues to be the biggest online forum in the Philippines until more than a decade later. I guess my role as a kind of like publisher and editor-in-chief of this website, I guess, if you will, has kind of mutated over the years as the internet space has mutated as well. And I guess a lot of these transitions taking place right now, I would like to describe as kind of like a revolution literally happening right under our feet. Everywhere in the Philippines, regardless of your gender, your income class, your geographic location, doesn't matter who you are, there's a shift taking place. And that shift is literally people who are swapping remote controls for computer mice or radios for sub 1,000 peso MP3 players. It's literally a revolution of attention. What are people looking at? What are people poking around with? What are people playing around with today is so radically different from what they were poking around with 10 years ago. More and more people are getting wired because of reduced costs to access. So much so that we're actually looking at close to 30 million internet users in the next couple of years. And it's not just about Metro Manila. It's literally nationwide where these shifts are changing. Of course, the majority of usage really does come from the metros and the metropolis, but it also kind of breaks down a little bit further. And if you look at the top 10 websites browsed in the Philippines, literally you have Facebook, Yahoo, Google, YouTube, Friendster. You see a very healthy mix of different websites. You have content-rich websites like Yahoo. You have social networks like Facebook and Friendster. You have self-publishing platforms like WordPress and Blogger. and information resources like Wikipedia and even kind of like new emerging platforms like Twitter and YouTube. It's a very exciting space to play in. Some interesting facts. Facebook, for instance, just broke 10 million in Filipino users in Feb of 2010. And everybody's literally jumping on Facebook right now. It's interesting to point out that both Noynoy Aquino and Manny Villar have the top #1 and #2 Facebook pages in the Philippines. So they're really racing to the top. They both broke 1 million users as of like this weekend. So it's a very interesting thing that these candidates are really looking at the internet as a viable place to market. And if they're looking at it, why aren't we? Why are we should as well? Interesting. Online games are billion peso business. And the model for online gaming has changed, especially in the Philippines, has changed radically in the last 5 years. It used to be that you had to pay a monthly fee to play a title like Ragnarok, for instance, or an hourly fee. But today, most games are delivered for free. You can actually play them online. And if you want, for example, to upgrade your character in the game or your avatar in the game, or improve the gaming experience, or take a shortcut, basically, you pay. And I guess that's the new gateway for gaming. And some of these companies are literally billion peso businesses. A very exciting recent IPO was eGames, a gaming company in the Philippines, and that's going to be a very exciting thing to see how they do over the next couple of years. I've talked to many retailers in the Philippines, and they're really telling me that they're very concerned by a website called Multiply, which literally has tens of thousands of stores. And it's gotten to the point already that if you're considering buying apparel in the Philippines, Multiply is as viable a point of consideration if you're an internet user as it is really going to a mall. Even the news has changed. So all of these publications, the New York Times, Philippine Daily Inquirer here, have moved their content online, have tried to create the same gateway that they have for news online as they have been successful at doing offline. But here's the thing. If you're an internet user or a very active internet user and you've gotten on a website like Twitter, maybe you're finding your news not through logging onto the homepage of a particular website, but maybe through Twitter or a peer forwarding something to you. So, and it's gotten to the point already that maybe what you learn from your peers is just as influential as what you learn from influential columnists or journalists. So, in the realm of social media, literally anyone can publish at the push of a button. Anybody, it used to be that you had to like hire a web designer or something like that to create a website. Now you can literally go to a service like Blogger, a service like LiveJournal if you want to just start chronicling your life or publishing content, or if you want to spend a little for something a little bit more interesting, you can go to a service like Squarespace or one of these higher end kind of like web development platforms. It's a scary thought that in the realm of social media anyone can publish. Forums like Pinoy Exchange have hundreds of thousands of users. Ourselves and some of our other competitors in this space have audiences which I guess are comparable to daily newspapers, and kind of makes you wonder if a website like Pinoy Exchange, for instance, where anybody can start a topic, and most of the topics are centered on showbiz chismes. What is it if people could create their own newspaper? What would the content be? There are over 100 bloggers today that have readerships above 10,000 unique visitors per day. That's a very interesting thing. That means that you have people running around, individuals building their own personal audiences and their own personal communities of like-minded individuals that they can